US envoy to India Eric Garcetti has said he respects that India likes its strategic autonomy, but in times of conflict there is no such thing as strategic autonomy. This as he pushed for forging a stronger partnership between New Delhi and Washington. Addressing a defense conclave in Delhi, Garcetti said, "In an interconnected world, no war is distant anymore," and asserted that one must not just stand for peace but also take concrete actions to make sure those who don't play by peaceful rules cannot continue unabated.
I know that India, and I respect that India, likes its strategic autonomy. But in times of conflict, there is no such thing as strategic autonomy. We will, in crisis moments, need to know each other. I don't care what title we put to it, but we will need to know that we are trusted friends, brothers and sisters, colleagues.
The US envoy's remarks come in the backdrop of ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Israel and Gaza. His comments follow the Biden administration's stance that India will continue to be a strategic partner for the United States despite concerns over its ties with Russia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Russia for 2 days for the 22nd India-Russia Annual Summit, which was watched closely by the West amidst the raging Ukraine conflict. After the summit, Pentagon had said that the United States will continue to view India as a strategic partner and have a robust dialogue with the country. Pentagon's press secretary, Major General Pat Ryder, said, and I'm quoting here, "We trust that India will support efforts to realize an enduring and just peace for Ukraine and will convey to Putin the importance of adhering to the UN Charter and the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity." In a divergence from Pentagon, earlier the Biden administration had raised concerns over Prime Minister Modi meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin. US spokesperson Matthew Miller said that the United States hoped India or any other country, when they engage with Russia, would make clear that it should respect the UN Charter, respect Ukraine's sovereignty and its territorial integrity.
We made quite clear directly with India our concerns about their relationship with Russia, and so we would hope India and any other country, when they engage with Russia, would make clear that Russia should respect the UN Charter, should respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal on the phone line with us. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. Now, how do you assess these comments that have been made by Eric Garcetti? He said that he respects India and that India likes its strategic autonomy, but in times of conflicts, there is no such thing as strategic autonomy. This, of course, after we know that India has always maintained its stance. It's made its stance very clear. What's your assessment of this, Siddhant?
Quite critical comments by the U.S. ambassador, and just not the U.S. ambassador, the State Department, the Pentagon and the White House all have been very critical about India in a week where we saw the Indian Prime Minister traveling to Moscow. Now, essentially, we know that the American side has been conversing with the Indian side over this issue, but many will see all these remarks as very hypocritical in many senses, because for United States, it has a history, in fact, a checkered history of having its own self-interest first. So when it comes to India, it looks like America has not been able to understand the Indian policy of its own strategic autonomy. The fact that the sitting U.S. ambassador here in Delhi, in a week when the Prime Minister traveled to Moscow, said that there is no such thing as strategic autonomy, means that the U.S. ambassador has actually no idea about India's foreign policy, a policy that India has adhered to for last 70 years. Even during the height of Cold War, India had engagement with both Washington and Moscow, and that continues. India is, of course, dependent on the Russian defense equipment. India has, of course, almost 60% of its defense equipment having Russian origin. And this is something very vital for India. In terms of the crude oil, we have seen how India has increased its crude oil import from Russia, which has, of course, helped India safeguard its consumers from high inflationary pressure, something that the Indian Prime Minister pointed to when he sat with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Kremlin. So when it comes to India's self-interest, India has been very clear that it will pursue that, but these public engagements will not bode well for India-US relationship.
All right. Well, Siddhant, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We'll, of course, continue to track all developments on that front closely. For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.